皆さん、また来てくださってありがとうございます。こちら、ニューヨークです。今日のね、動画はね、いろんな、お題あるんですけど、ちょうどね、三浦瑠麗さんの旦那さんが、太陽光パネルの詐欺で捕まったっていうことで、ちょうどね、フォックスのタッカー・カールソンさんが、ジョーダン・ピーターソンさんを招いて、この心理学者の方ですね、どうやってこの偽エネルギー政策が、本当にただのグローバリストっていうゴロつきどもの既得権益だけのために、これ最も有害で、そして最も緑を破壊してる、誰の得にもならないとんでもない政策だっていう、まるでカルト。それを専門家は知っていながら、その真実を隠して、ご利用して進めてる。その結果、本当に世界中がインフレになったり、貧しい人たちのところに一番しわ寄せがいってるっていうようなことで、私ね、ただの主婦です。ただの主婦ですけど、これね、二つほどね、勘が当たったなっていうのがあるんですね。一個はワクチンです。このワクチンは、私はアメリカにずっと住んでいるので、すごい怖いのいっぱい見てきてるんですね。このアメリカの医療業界、製薬会社、そして保険会社、もう本当にね、アメリカ人自身がすごい食い物にされてるんですよ。この国では。で、最終的にそういうことになった時に、でもあんたサインしたでしょって、これで終わりなんですよ。だから本当に気をつけないといけないっていうのは私すごくよく知っていて、そういうのもあって、私は日本にいる友達にはもう本当注意してよく調べてねっていうことをすごく言ってたんですよ。で、その時にね、いろんなサイトで知り合った方がコメントしてて、ニュージーランドの方が、そんなこと言って、じゃあ私死んじゃうのかしら、あはははってすごい笑ってたんですよ。で、いや、死んじゃうってことじゃないけど、私は陰謀論として言ってるんじゃなくって、本当に、歴史を調べるとちょっと怖い歴史があるから、注意してねっていう感じで言ってたんですね。ところがね、ここのところ、ニュージーランド、オーストラリア、イギリス、あと、欧州、すごい、日本もかもしれないんですけど、異常なんですね、死亡者数が。エクセスデスって言うんですけど、通常の死亡率をはるかに超えてるっていうことなんですよ。だから、実際そうやって死んじゃった方が多いってことなんですよね。で、これね、同じようにね、このグリーンエネルギーも、私は最初から、どうしてこんな地下2000メートルにすでに地球が作り出してくれた自然のナチュラルガスですよ。岩の中に染み込んでいる、自分たちが欲しい時に掘削すればいいだけのものを使わずに、わざわざ巨大な鉄くずとして大きなものを空の領域に追っ立てたり、砂漠やそういう自然を破壊して太陽光パネルを作ったりっていう、どうして逆に人工のものを作るのがグリーンになるのかわからない。普通の主婦として言ってたことが、またね、実はね、このドキュメンタリーで今までやってきたエネルギーの中で一番有害であって、何百年もそこに生育していた植物を根絶やしにしっていうことだったのでね、またね、普通のね、主婦の勘が当たったのかなって思うんですよね。だからね、本当にね、このグローバリストなんていうゴロつきは、ろくなアイデア出しゃしないんですよ。で、なんでこんなに誰のためにもならないものが未だに政府主導でやってるかっていうと、結局はゴロつきどもにこびてる既得権益だけなんですよね。だから市民が、国民みんながこれおかしいじゃんって言ったら、やっぱり議員を落とせばいいんですよね。そこでこんなおかしな施策に掲げるやつを落とそうっていうことになれば、やっぱりそのゴロつきにこびるだけの議員がいなくなっていくと思うんですよ。そういうことでね、今日はね、ちょっとね、このタッカー・カールソンさんの動画を上げてみたいと思います。で、後半は、プラネット・オブ・ヒューマン。マイケル・ムーア監督のドキュメンタリー。実はグリーンじゃなくてとても有害で、何十年も持たなくて、供給量も代替案にはならなくてっていう、もうダメ尽くしの、それが流行り出して、この何十年と なった今、その砂漠でボロボロに壊れた鏡や太陽光パネルや乗せられて再生可能エネルギーの街にしましょうって言ったところがもう今はもう廃れちゃってボロボロのスラム街みたいになっちゃってるところとか、本当に結構ショッキングだったので、ちょこっとだけ載っけておきます。で、サイトも一緒に載っけておきますね。日本語であるかどうかちょっとわからないんですけど、ぜひ見てください。ということで、どうぞ。
Environmentalism is supposed to be about protecting the environment, and most people are completely in favor of that. But the environmental movement of today has nothing to do with protecting the environment. They're destroying the environment, killing the California condor with their wind projects and whales, and basically wrecking Africa with all the elements needed for their new battery revolution, etc., etc., etc. It's not about the environment. It's some kind of weird cult around climate. And who better to assess a cult than Jordan Peterson, who is a famous psychologist and author. We asked him about what is happening recently. Here's the conversation that resulted. Jordan Peterson, thank you so much for coming on. Just to begin with the premise that the modern environmental movement doesn't seem to be doing a lot for the actual environment. It's my observation. What do you think that's about?
Well, I think the best example of that's probably both Sri Lanka and Germany. I mean, Sri Lanka is an absolute wasteland at the moment as a direct consequence of idiot, hypothetically environmentalist policies. And then in Germany, energy is much more expensive than it was. It's much more unreliable than it was. The Germans are dangerously dependent on dictators and the Russians. And that's all a consequence of hypothetical environmentalist policies. So even by the standards laid down by the environmentalists themselves, the policies that were put in place that were pro-environmental are failing. But there's something that's even deeper lying underneath the surface. Alex Epstein has made a fair bit of this in his new book, Fossil Future, but I started delving into this, I guess, 30 years ago when I wrote my first book, Maps of Meaning. So, Tucker, it's become pretty clear recently, as a consequence of converging evidence from a lot of different disciplines, neuroscience, artificial intelligence, and literary criticism, odd bedfellows, by the way, and there's more scientific and humanities endeavors involved in this convergence than those, that the structure through which we see the world is essentially a narrative, is a story. Yes. And so, saw today, UNICEF just released a report showing that there's been a 25% increase in the last year and a half in the number of women and children that are starving around the world. It's a direct consequence of the increase in energy prices, which are in themselves a direct consequence of anti-industrial policies put in place by hypothetically well-meaning, deluded, pseudo-religious environmental worshippers of the apocalypse. It's an appalling situation, and it's likely to get worse, I would say, before it gets better.
These are the largest in Michigan. I think it's 482 foot total. How many yards of concrete? There's 800 yards of concrete in the base, right around 140 tons of resteel.
What are those blades made out of?
That's all fiberglass and balsam. They're about 36,000 pounds apiece. This tower weighed.
They were impressive machines. But is it possible for machines made by industrial civilization to save us from industrial civilization?
If the goal is to try to make Vermont the leader in climate change, I appreciate looking to the sky in the hopes that we can do that. But more importantly, I'm personally looking at the ground thinking this is not the kind of legacy I'd want to leave to my kids. When I was a kid, we'd go hiking in these woods. We would be able to drink from the waters down the hill here. And now you have to question that. And how long are these towers supposed to last?
20-something years. 20.
I know. It's just.
Oh, wait a minute. You're
It's a
kidding me.
nanosecond.
20 years.
Oh, it's a nanosecond in the time of energy.
Supposed to move out.
The thing is you've got to have a fossil fuel power plant backing it up and idling 100% of the time. Let's just say the wind stopped right now. Just stopped for an hour. You've got to have that power.
Is being spent, and green energy is not even replacing fossil fuels.
They don't even know that that's a question.
Because we're a little worried. Are we desperate to accept any idea that sounds alternative or green? Are we avoiding looking too closely because we don't want to know the answer. Was asking some of the same questions.
I mean, I thought that solar and wind were probably very good solutions. I mean, it wasn't really even that long ago. One of the most dangerous things right now is the illusion that alternative technologies like wind and solar are somehow different from fossil fuels. Well, I hear a lot of the times that solar cells are made out of sand.
Have you ever thought about solar panels? The main ingredient that makes them work is silicon or sand.
This is the raw material chips are made of, sand.
They don't use sand at all. So they use, I'll show you what. So this is one of the ingredients. It's actually mined quartz.
Spruce Pine, North Carolina, regarded as the finest source of high-purity quartz in the world for semiconductor, solar, and...
You can't use sand because sand has too many impurities. So you start with a very high-quality quartz and a very high-quality coal. And then you put those two together into an arc furnace and you melt them.
The quartz is then melted with coal in a large furnace at temperatures of up to 1,800 degrees.
So you need more coal to do that. So I get another coal out. So that's when we melt these together, we get silicon metal and carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide just goes off and you get rid of the carbon, you're left with silicon metal.
Here's Robert F. Kennedy Jr. speaking to oil and gas company insiders.
It's a combination solar gas plant. It's a turbine that we just take from a gas plant, suspended from a big scaffolding, a tower, and surrounded by giant mirrors in the desert.
Is being played? I mean...
Well, we're basically just being fed a lie. For instance, you'll hear about Germany running on wind and solar.
35% right now, 50% of their power. There were days this past summer when the Germans were generating 80% of their power from the sun.
But Germany is still Europe's largest consumer of coal.
Aber wenn in dieser Region die meisten...
It turns out, you don't just need fossil fuels to run a place like Ivanpah. You need the devil himself. Or in this case...
This absolutely cannot extend civilization's life. This relies on the most toxic and industrial processes that we've ever created.